Hello, everybody. Welcome back on the YouTube channel of 60 Hour Shakespeare. I'm Ilaria, yours truly, and we are here with, can I have a little drum roll? Ali de Souza, so exciting. So he doesn't need any presentation, but I will introduce him for you in any case. Ali is a great actor, director, and most importantly, he is Associate Head of Acting at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland in Glasgow. That is probably one of the best performing arts school in the whole world. So we are ready. Thank you, Ali, for joining us here. We are so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Yeah. I just wanted to tell people to stay with us. We will chat with you for literally around 45 minutes, and then people are warmly encouraged to pop some questions in the YouTube chat so that they can ask you all the burning questions about Shakespeare, acting, RCS, etc. So before we start, I would encourage the audience, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the 60 Hour Shakespeare channel. It's free, so no excuse. And to watch all the other interesting contents that we have all about your beloved Shakespeare. So, Ali, thank you so much for being with us. I will start immediately with probably not the most original question, but it's something that has affected us all in this year because we are literally in the middle of a pandemic. And I would like to know from you that are a daily practitioner of acting, how has the pandemic affected teaching acting? And if it was all negative or if there are any positive lessons that we have learned and can be useful also in the future acting careers.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I'm delighted to be talking with you, Ilaria, because it's so lovely to see you again. And thank you so much for asking me to do this. It's really lovely.
It's a gift to us and a pleasure.
Thank you. So yes, the pandemic, right? It wasn't all negative, but it was pretty awful. Particularly the first time we locked down and we tried to work out how to teach actor training online. And it was really hard for the students and for the staff alike. And as we kind of moved on through the months, RCS was brilliant at lobbying Scottish government and saying, look, what they're doing there is really important. They can't do it online. They have to do it in person. It's essential activity. So we were given special dispensation by the government to do a lot in person. So that was amazing. I mean, it was, all with all the COVID restrictions, the usual, distancing, masks, wash your hands, tiny numbers of students. And I was doing, acting for screen with, 2 students, maybe 4 students maximum. So it was really tiring, but great to be online. And the students really embraced it, and we managed to film everything. We managed to, put everything out on stream, and as a result, we reached a much bigger audience than we normally would if we were just in the theatre, which was positive. So our first show was The Bacchae, David Gregg's The Bacchae, and that was watched by well over 1,500 people, and in 31 countries across the world, and the 47% of the audience was 18 to 25. So we had a really good. It was lots of positive things about filming and streaming stuff, and the actors learned new skills as well. They learned how to film. They learned how to edit. They learned how to do this kind of new way of acting that you are familiar with because you've done it online performances, which is not theatre and it's not screen. It's something in the middle. So yeah, there was positive.
Yeah, that brings me straight to my second question very quickly, because I was involved in a few interesting projects with 60 Hour Shakespeare, mainly of online performances. And I think that it gave us the opportunity to make Shakespeare feel more contemporary, like closer also to people that usually maybe wouldn't have watched a Shakespeare play. Probably, like I shared our links with a lot of friends that probably wouldn't commit to come to a theater because they're like, meh. I mean, but they watched it online and told me it literally felt like a movie, like I was watching a movie. Do you feel like we have these, we're breaking basically the time span between us and Shakespeare using the online platform?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the online performance thing is not going to go away. I think it will just get better and better. It's a kind of hybrid, as I said. It's not screen, it's not theatre, it's something in between. And you know, theatre's always survived all sorts of stuff. You know, it comes through war, you know, it goes through, it survives wars, it survives the plague, it survived Parliament closing it down in 1642. And it's, you know, and it survives, it's going to survive this pandemic, and it will get through. And every time it emerges from some big world crisis, it's always new and vibrant and stronger. It's like a phoenix. I think it's just, you know, and I think it's whatever this online performance thing is going to be here, I think, to stay. And the reason I think Shakespeare works so well with it is because, you know, Shakespeare demands that you, the actor, acknowledge the audience. Yeah, that's, you know, one of the number one rules of acting is never forget your audience for acting for theatre. And Shakespeare, certainly you can never forget your audience. The opposite is true for acting on screen. Acting on screen is like there is no audience. The audience is way, way down the road, a month's time after the film has been edited. So there's no audience when you're acting for screen. So somehow Shakespeare manages to you know, this online thing sort of straddles those two opposites and creates this kind of magic marriage. And I think Shakespeare works wonderfally online. I think it's quite incredible. And you don't have to pay, obviously, you don't have to pay rights either. So
yeah, yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Also, because when you were saying screen acting has no audience, yes, basically you only have the crew, and they couldn't care less of what you're doing because they're too busy managing their technical equipment. So they're
that's
like,
right.
oh, he's acting. Yes, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, because if you start acting, if you start, you know, bringing in an audience whenever you're acting for Shakespeare and hoping that the crew think, ooh, he's a great actor. As soon as you start doing that, you start to act beyond the other person. Yeah. So and then you start to, it looks like you're overacting.
Yeah, so, absolutely, absolutely. And that's something we have worked on a lot, having to use the platform, because yeah, we had to forget everything about being on a big stage, big audience, always third circle. And there were moments in which we really felt quite lonely. Like when you're doing a monologue on stage, you have the company of the audience. But when you're doing a monologue in front of your camera, you are really in yourself, which I think brought a different depth to the monologues, because we really can practice the first circle energy when we are just me and my little dot there. So yeah, I totally agree with you. And talking about acting Shakespeare, I'm very curious, since you are both a director and a teacher, so you know both sides of an actor, basically. I would like to do, which are the main features and characteristics that make an actor spark Shakespeare energy? Like you have to cast a Shakespeare character. Which are the main qualities and characteristics you look for in an actor? I know the Shakespeare characters are different, but if there is like a common coefficient.
So it's a good question. I think for any genre, of, you know, the actor has to be brave and take risks and love the detail and love the challenge, and, you know, be embodied in everything that, you know, an actor needs to be whenever they're on stage. But with Shakespeare, there's another level, I think, which is about being brave enough to rise up to the size of these incredible characters and these incredible stories, and, you know, rise up to the size of that wonderful language, the poetry, and pull it into you to radiate it back out. That takes an enormous amount of practice and stamina and perseverance. But yeah, I think the good Shakespearean actor is the one who just expands into that size of what they need to do, and they're not afraid to do it. That's the difference for me, I think, or the extra thing that needs to happen.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I may add that you must do so, but still being relatable and realistic, and not becoming these, you know, stereotypical character, but just saying like you can be that person, you can be that Cleopatra walking in the streets. You are not the stereotype of Cleopatra, you are Cleopatra. So yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. Yeah,
that is so true. That is so true, because you're right, because the danger is, of course, you become very Shakespearean then, don't you? And you become very kind of, you know, that kind of 1950s sort of way of doing Shakespeare. And of course it isn't. It's about letting all of that, all of Cleopatra, the size of her history, her beautiful language, and letting that come through Ilaria, and Ilaria allowing Cleopatra to play her.
Exactly. And that's, I think, what is more rewarding about acting Shakespeare. I personally feel like the best thing about acting Shakespeare is I am speaking this incredible text as if it were my words. Like in this moment, I am talking with the words of Shakespeare, but they are mine. Mm-hmm. And I think that those little moments, I don't think it's sustainable for a whole, I mean, if you are a great actor, probably they become, but there are just moments, tiny moments through a performance in which you feel like, I said that because that was my line, that was my word. I truly felt it was mine, but it was an incredible text. So I think that's the most rewarding part of acting Shakespeare, which brings us to, I know that you have a background in psychology nonetheless, which is very interesting, because I think that probably Shakespeare characters are among the most psychologically complex characters. They could literally be used for analysis, basically. And I would like to know how useful it has been to you, both as a performer and as a director and as a teacher.
So it's been hugely useful. I never thought it would be whenever I graduated and I became an actor. I didn't really think of what I'd learned about psychology. But yes, I studied human behavior. I studied why people do the things that they do. I was particularly interested in non-verbal communication. I was particularly interested in like survivalist theory of why people, how people play to win, play the game to win, to survive in the human jungle out there. And that's what acting is all about. Me and my friend Angie used to, go to a lecture, and a psychology lecture, then go to the pub, and we would be so into it and so, sussing people out and, doing this kind of thing. So it's about understanding how people work, not just characters and why characters do the things that they do, but also actors and why actors, a big part of my job is to identify what it is in the actor that is stopping them completely committing to that moment, completely committing to that action. And it's all to do with fear. And my job is to identify what is that source of fear or the source of failure, and to help them remove the armor, reveal themselves safely in the safety of the rehearsal room, to really just be able to take the plunge and do what that character needs to do. And crucially, also understand how to, after that actor has been so wonderfully vulnerable and brave, help them to know how to sew that up again and put the armor back on and go back out into the human jungle and survive and stay alive. So that is about understanding how people tick. Yeah. But I'm learning every day. I'm learning about people.
For sure. That's the most interesting thing about life. We never stop evolving and learning, no matter how much we've done something or for how long. There is always something more or something different to add on our experience. And I think it's very interesting, the word that you use, vulnerable, because I think that that's when the magic happens. And it might sound like a paradox, but I think that when you are really vulnerable, you never overact, because that's a kind of protection. There is people that protect themselves not acting enough, but there are also, I think, people that protect themselves being very out there, but deep in there's nothing, because they are keeping it to themselves. Is it right?
Yes, absolutely right.
Yeah, I think that vulnerability is when you really allow yourself to bring that something that you have here and donate it to the character and say, this is my fear, my pain, my suffering, use it, it's yours, use it and bring it to the audience. So totally. I think that's very difficult to achieve, but when it happens, it's really magical.
Yeah, totally. I absolutely agree. Yes, you're talking like a director, Ilaria. It's wonderful.
I'm talking like a director, first of all, because I'm having great teachers such as you, for example. Since you are the one who started my whole Shakespearean journey, and I couldn't be more grateful for that, but also because 60 Hour Shakespeare has given me the opportunity to be assistant director for Romeo and Juliet in May. So yeah, that was a great experience to me.
Fantastic.
And I think that, directing is the other side of acting. Even maybe your passion is acting. For me, acting is my first call. But I think that if you want to be a good actor, try walking in the shoes of a director for a while, because it can give you the whole other side of things. So it was a great experience. So yeah, I'm glad you noticed that. I'm so proud. Since we have talked about psychology and the mind side of things, I would also like to know how important are physicality and movement when making a performance alive, and which are the risks with physicality and movement, because we know that the body can be our best friend or worst enemy when it comes to being on stage.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so important. Physicality is so important. It is everything. I talked earlier about the importance of embodiment, and for Shakespeare it really is important, because Shakespeare is so clever and so rich and so full of detail and so full of clues about how to do it, which is why actors love it, because suddenly they've got rules and a formula about how to do Shakespeare, and that whole mysterious esoteric thing that is acting with a capital A suddenly has like answers, and so actors love it, and they can analyze it and read it and analyze the punctuation, analyze the rhythms, all the rest of it. And the danger, of course, is that it gets locked up in this terrible place, which is your head. And then what happens is the body gets left behind. And what I can see quite often is thunderous rain here in Edinburgh. So I hope you can hear me okay.
I hear you perfectly, yeah.
What happens is that the poor body gets sort of left behind, or it becomes this kind of like a sort of shopping trolley just to move this talking head around the stage, you know. That's the worst thing. Or because the actor hasn't investigated the body enough, doing what you just mentioned, which is doing far too much and gesturing everything and trying to get the audience to understand what the sense is by almost miming everything.
Yeah, exactly. That is,
you know,
so
both
unnatural.
of the so unnatural. Yeah. Both of those things just interfere with the audience's sense of what's going on. They just can't. They lose track of the narrative and why people are angry. They'll look at a Shakespeare moment and say, okay, I know that she's really angry because I don't know why, you know, or I know that she's really sad, but I don't really know why. And so it's about trying to engage every part of your body, not just your head, but your heart, your loins, your feet, you know, to make sure that the thoughts are born in different parts of your body, not just in your head. And then the audience can read the whole package. Then the audience can read the non-verbal communication, understand why a gesture is made, and it makes sense, and not over gesturing and not doing nothing. There's this like wonderful happy medium.
Yeah, so, I agree. And there is a specific reason why I asked you this question, is because I remember you mentioning during that course with RCS the importance of movement, and how if you play the movement correctly, you get the character for free. And that's a sentence that stuck with me, and I'm always applying to my acting. And it has changed a lot for me, because you said, you play the situation and get the character for free, I'll show you. And then with it, you showed us one of your assistants, I think it was Mary, lovely Mary. Yeah. And you made her do certain movements, and you told us what she was playing, but she didn't know. And it were like 3 completely situations with the same movements, and we saw 3 different stories. And so I think that that's when I really understood how important movements are when you are acting. You don't need to invent the movements of your character, just do them, just die. You need to die there. And if you're Hamlet is gonna die. If you are Lady Macbeth is gonna die, but die, please. It was the greatest piece of advice I got. It was life-changing for me, so I'm giving it away for free now. I mean, audience, pay us later. Yeah, we will send you bank bills. But yeah, it was amazing for me. Since we are talking a lot about learning and ideas, we have a special questions from our scholars out there, because we know how doing is the best way to achieve acting skills. But we would also like to do if there are any interesting books that can be like acting Shakespeare or anything Shakespeare related that you would like to advise to our audience.
Yeah. So there's tons of really good books about how to act Shakespeare. And just about Shakespeare in general. I think for actors, I think the best books for actors are the ones that are most accessible. So things like Shakespeare on Toast by Ben Crystal. I don't know if you know that. It's a wonderful book. It's very accessible. The Actor's Guide to Performing Shakespeare by Mad Harold is wonderful, accessible, funny. And he's got a great name. He's called Mad with 2 Ds. So, and Cicely Berry's book. It's a voice book, The Actor and the Text, but she takes you through how to handle the text so clearly and so carefully. It's the wonder. So those 3 books would be the ones I would recommend: Shakespeare on Toast, The Actor's Guide to Performing Shakespeare, and The Actor and the Text. But there are tons of really good ones.
That's great. Thank you so much. We will look for them, and also our nerd audience out there. They're all gonna be there reading from tonight on, and then we will do a little test for them on the platform to see if they studied well. No, but apart from jokes, that's very, very interesting. Now, I have a couple of very, very interesting questions that were given by our beloved Gavin, our director and you know, the landlord of this platform. And so, and they are a bit complicated, so I'm gonna read them and then we will interpret them together. The first one is, some of Shakespeare's tragedies can be seen as a mismatch of character and situation, which means if Hamlet had been in Othello's situation, he would have put on a play about infidelity instead of the murder of his father, and realized that Desdemona was faithful. Aristotle wrote about hamartia, or a mistake that brings about a tragedy. Do you see psychological flaws or this mismatch in Shakespeare's plays, and which of them?
Oh, that is a complicated question, but a very,
Thank you, Gavin.
a very good one. And absolutely, hamartia is the Greek. It comes from Greek tragedy. It is the character's fatal flaw or the fatal mistake, the error that they make that determines their path. And if they'd made a different choice, it would have been a very different outcome, and they wouldn't be in such a pickle. So absolutely, and every one of Shakespeare's tragic characters has that moment of, you know, should I have done it or should I not have done it? You know, should I do this? So, you know, a classic one is Macbeth, obviously. You know, there's this lovely moment in the play where he's having this discussion with the audience, saying, it's the if it were done when 'tis done soliloquy, where he says, you know, should I kill Duncan or should I not kill Duncan? What do you think? I'm thinking it's not really a good idea because Duncan is so well liked and loved, that, you know, if I kill him, the whole world will be against me. And he just gets to the conclusion of saying, I'm not going to do it. Actually, I don't think I'm going to do it. When Lady Macbeth comes in and goes, why have you left it?
Oh, you froze for me. I think you are frozen. I don't know what happens. My connection is good. Do I have any tech department out there who can help? Okay, I think he will come back for sure in a couple of seconds. He probably had some connection problems. Sorry for each and every one of you who is watching. That's an interesting moment of suspense, though. Interesting. Don't worry, he'll come back. unless he turned into a ghost like Hamlet's father. That's the beauty of live streaming, though. Oh, hi, Ali. Welcome back. You're muted. Muted. You're still muted.
I'm still muted. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I don't know.
there you are. No problem.
I'm so sorry.
No problem. That was a very big suspense moment because you said that when Lady Macbeth comes in, bam, everything shuts down. So it was actually perfect timing.
But if she'd come in like a minute later, he might have categorically decided not to kill Duncan, and she would not have persuaded him then in the scene, the wonderful scene that follows, that she had to, that he has to, change his mind back when he says, "We're not going to do this anymore." And that's lovely. But of course, his flaw and her flaw is ambition. She uses her ambition to speak to his ambition, and then he changes his mind back and goes, "Yeah, okay, I am going to kill him." And of course, well, it goes the way it goes.
And we know what happens next.
We know what happens next. It wouldn't be such a good play, however, if there wasn't these fatal errors and these fatal flaws.
Yeah, sure. And since we were talking about Macbeth, I would like to know, why do we also call it the Scottish play? I mean, it's based in Scotland, but which is the original title? Are we supposed to call it Macbeth or the Scottish play?
Well, we call it the Scottish play because because it's so full of witches and supernatural stuff. People who were very superstitious thought that it was very bad to conjure up things like the witches and Hecuba and all that kind of stuff. So there was a huge superstition around it, and it's a play that's full of fights and swords and all sorts of dangerous things, and fire, cauldrons bubbling and everything else. So a lot of accidents happen whenever whenever you direct Macbeth. I mean, I've directed
to be an actor.
I've directed Macbeth quite a few times, and everything. I've never had a smooth running show ever. It's all either Macbeth has got ill. In fact, the last time I directed Macbeth, I had 2 Macbeths, and I ended up with no Macbeths because they both got ill. so I had to use an understudy, a week's notice. The first time I directed Macbeth, during the sword fight, the sword broke in half and flew off towards the audience and landed in the floor just at somebody's feet. So I mean, it's there's things that happen all the time, and people do get really superstitious about it and call it the Scottish play rather than call it Macbeth.
Wow.
Yeah, because
I knew anything about that. That's very interesting.
yeah, it's just because everybody's nervous about conjuring up witches and stuff. There's lots of superstition.
The Scottish play for sure from now on. We don't need any more bad luck this year by summoning the witches. Absolutely, we're done with that. Scottish play it is. Yeah, that's very cool. That's extremely cool. So I have another one tricky question from Mr. Lee. Which is very interesting, actually, because we had a Q&A here with Professor Emma Smith, and she was asked about the strategic opacity. So the idea that Shakespeare deliberately removed clear character motivations from the source text on which some of his plays were based, and which are the opportunities or challenges that are given to the actor and to the director when playing some, ambiguous characters, as as an example, Iago from Othello, but there are plenty of them in the whole. So strategic opacity, interesting.
Yeah, so I had never heard of strategic opacity until that question was asked of Emma. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't get that question, because but she knew what the answer was, and she'd obviously read it up. So of course, since then I've investigated it, and yeah, it is this deliberate thing to just miss out a piece of motivation, and it's a total gift for an actor. It's a total gift for a director, because one of the rules of acting is that it's all in the text. A good play will have all the answers in the text. You shouldn't have to invent anything as an actor. You just need to dig deep enough, and you'll find the answers to why a character behaves in the way that they do. However, with strategic opacity, that there is always a big part that's like, why does Viola dress up as a boy? Why doesn't she just go as a woman to work with her
also
scene?
because she doesn't say anything about it. She just says, I'll do it. Yeah. She doesn't say that much about it. I mean, there is that first moment, there is a fair behavior in you, sir, etc., but she doesn't really explain, I want to dress as a eunuch because why not? Maybe because it's easier to get a job in Shakespeare society, but also nowadays it's easier to get a job if you're a boy.
So you have to find the actor has to find the reason, if particularly if you're updating it, and it's just as easy for women to get jobs as it is for men nowadays. So you have to find the reason, and that's wonderful. It totally helps you be inventive.
In our setting, since we set the play in the 1920s, probably this wasn't even a joke, because in the 1920s, in the New York Mafia, probably was way easier to leave if you were a man, because there were more job opportunities. And then if you were a woman, and you could maybe become a prostitute or something like that, which was really like Viola, I think. So that might be a reason. So I totally get what you mean.
And with Iago, there's a number of reasons as why he behaves the way that he behaves. You could, is it because he thinks that Othello slept with his, he does a really extreme thing. He destroys Othello not by killing him, by getting him to kill the thing that he loves most in the world, which is Desdemona. That's what he does. He gets Othello to kill the thing he loves most. And that's really extreme. It's really extreme. Why does he do it? Is it really because he thinks that Othello slept with his wife, with Emilia? Or is it because, he's just got psychopathic tendencies? Or is it because he has been passed up for promotion, and that trust that exists, that can only exist between two soldiers who have been fighting together in a war, and that absolute bond of trust, that has been
even fraternity, I would say. They feel like brothers.
So there's lots of reasons, or maybe all three of them, there's lots of reasons why Iago behaves the way that he behaves. Shakespeare doesn't give you the answer.
No, he doesn't. Even though he gives us the clue about the green-eyed monster, jealousy, the green-eyed monster. It's interesting because jealousy becomes a character itself in Othello. You don't have an actor playing jealousy, but it's everywhere. It's like jealousy between wife and husband, and like brothers, friends, and it's almost like it's there, this monster, and we can even visualize it because Shakespeare gives us that absolutely genius characteristic. Why is it green-eyed? There is no explanation, but it's such a genius thing.
It is. It really is.
It's almost like those two green eyes are watching you on stage while you play, like it's there. And it gives you all the motivations you need, even though there is not like a clear, you do this because he did that to you. So I think that's what it's genius about good old Will. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's so interesting. And since we have mentioned a few different characters and plays before we collect some questions from the audience, I would like to ask you a very, very hard question, because I know it's a hard question and I'm a bit mean to ask you, but I need to. If you could only name your favorite male character, female character, and monologue, one monologue could be either female or male, which ones would they be? Favorite, like you love to watch them, you would love to play them, you just love them, they are there for you and you love them. I know that's mean. I know that's mean. I know. Punish me later.
That's such a hard question, because every time I work on a Shakespeare play, it becomes my favorite, because I'm rediscovering characters all the time and rediscovering why I love Macbeth or why I love Lady Macbeth, or so that my loyalty to these characters changes every time I work on a play. I suppose my favorite male character, it's so hard, could be Macbeth, could be King Lear, could be Hamlet. The great thing about these characters is that I could be Prospero. The great thing
you can mention more than one. I mean, you have this chance to mention more than one. Just don't say all of them. I love all of them.
And I think those ones are because they are so universal. Anyone of any gender can play these wonderful, complex characters. Best female characters, probably Viola or Juliet.
Always
or
in
Beatrice,
my heart.
Always in your heart. Beatrice from Queen Margaret from the Henrys. Yeah, there's loads, really hard. And best monologue, ooh.
Yeah, that's the hardest one, I think, because there are so many great monologues out there.
Yeah, so many great monologues. I think.
Let's say top 3 at the moment. Let's simplify the question.
I'm going to just say one, and it is To Be or Not to Be. And the reason for that is I went to a thing called the Shakespeare Forum, which is a kind of class that happens when I used to, a class that happens where just anybody can get up and do, a bit like your open mic things, anybody can get up and do a monologue. And this guy got up and he did To Be or Not to Be, and it didn't make any sense. It was overacted. It was just really odd choices. And I as a teacher, I was sitting there thinking, I wouldn't know what to do with this monologue.
With this guy.
But the facilitator asked him a few really key questions, and he said, "Why do you want to do this monologue? What is it about you?" And he said, "Well, I'm doing it. I'm not an actor. I'm doing it because we have a kind of drama group with the church that I'm with, and I'm interested in what happens. I'm religious, and I'm interested in what happens after you die, and that's a question I always have." And the facilitator just got him to strip it all away and just said, just with that thought, just do the words, And it was so beautiful, Ilaria. Honestly, the whole audience of actors and teachers and directors were crying at the end of this speech. Wow. It was so pure that this man who was not an actor, who was just trying it out, was amazing. And I thought that if that monologue done with that purity can touch that many people, then so that's a great monologue. Yeah.
Yeah, oh my God. This story is amazing also because that's what we were discussing before, basically. Sometimes something just clicks and the magic happens and you don't even know how. Sometimes you don't even know how did it happen? How did I do this with such a passion and with all my heart? And will it happen again? Probably not. That's the beauty, I think, of theater. Probably it's going to happen another kind of witchcraft, another kind of magic, but not that one. That one is lost forever. But this is what makes it so unique and so special. And I think that this is what keeps us all going on, like as performers, especially live performers, also the dancers or the opera singers. Imagine going up there every night, same steps or same aria, but every night is a completely different story.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of theater and the magic. And I'm so glad we are slowly getting it back, because I think we all needed that. We need that in our lives.
Really
we need that kind of energy. So I would like to see if there are any questions from the audience for now. Yes, there we are. Oh, we have plenty of them. So the first one is from Paul. First of all, thank you, Paul, for being with us. So we are answering your questions, so get ready for that. So what does the playing of Shakespeare work give an actor? So what do you achieve as an actor when you do Shakespeare?
Oh, what do you achieve as an actor when you're doing Shakespeare? I think you said it earlier on, you suddenly feel like you're speaking these words because you've made such a huge leap of faith in the words, in the other person. You've made such a huge leap of faith that it feels wonderful to do a Shakespeare play. Well, you know what it's like. It feels, you get so much out of it. It's like singing an aria. It's like doing a big ballet solo or whatever. It's like high art, and it feels wonderful whenever you're doing it properly. But actually, also what Shakespeare gives you is a key into so many other kinds of acting. I'm very lucky. I get to teach Shakespeare and direct Shakespeare, and I also get to teach acting for screen and direct acting for screen. And there's loads of lessons that can happen from Shakespeare that can be directly translated into acting for screen. So I think if you can do Shakespeare, you can do anything when it comes to acting. So an example of that is, we talked earlier on about having thoughts in different parts of your body. And in acting for screen, if you're in a medium close-up like we are at the moment, it's dead easy to get caught in this area and with your eyes. But totally. But if you take your thoughts from your loins, for example, from bits where you can't be seen, it suddenly gives your screen performance a whole new strength and detail and depth that you didn't know you had. So there's lots and lots of similarities I think you can, and that's what Shakespeare can give an actor.
Yeah, oh my God, it's so true. It's absolutely so true. Then I know that we have Roxanne there, another former classmate of ours.
Roxanne.
Great ear. Ciao, Roxanne. Thank you for being with us. So her question is, what was for you the hardest feature of Shakespeare as an actor and then as a director? Hardest feature? I don't know what she really means by feature, but yeah.
I think as an actor, the hardest thing I've ever done in Shakespeare was the very first Shakespeare that I did, which was Macbeth. And I played all sorts of little parts. I played the old man and Fleance and all sorts of just various parts. And the next day, after the first night, the next day, I was in the shop, and this woman came up to me, this old woman came up to me and said, "Were you in Macbeth last night?" And I was like, "Yes, I was in Macbeth, actually." And she said, "Oh, you weren't very good." And I was like, "Oh, okay." She said, "I didn't know who you were. I didn't know who you were next. Didn't know what you were saying. You didn't know what you were saying. I think you need to study Shakespeare." And I was like, "You're right," because I've just been winging it so much. So yeah, that was the worst thing I did as an actor. As a director, I think the most difficult thing I've had to come across is how to work with characters like Shylock, and why people behave to Shylock the way that they behave, and tackling that level of racism or anti-Semitism or whatever it is that motivates these people, and what motivates Shylock into continuing with this bond to such an extent. Yeah, there's lots of strategic opacity in The Merchant of Venice, and I love it so much.
So
yeah,
great.
It's a real challenge. I'd love to direct it again. Yeah.
Yeah, we're here for that. Keep us posted on your projects. We want to come and watch. Yay. Then I have another interesting question from our audience. What is the best performance? I mean, that's another hard one, because when you say what is the best something, I always see people like, oh my God, I don't know. But let's say one performance that you remember that it was remarkable from an actor in a Shakespeare play.
So I think the one that comes to mind is seeing Anthony Quayle doing King Lear. This was about 1,000 years ago. Diana Rigg was Goneril. It was a fantastic cast. And I didn't know the play. I didn't know the play at all. So I went to it, not really knowing what I was getting into, but finding that I was understanding so much of it. And of course, that's what is great about Shakespeare, is making the audience feel clever, because the audience go, "Oh, I'm understanding this. This is great. I must be really clever." But at the end, he did a brilliant job, this film actor, Anthony Quayle. And at the end, there was this moment where Cordelia dies, and somebody brings her body in to Lear, and he asks the court to keep quiet because she's trying to say something, and he's convinced that she's trying to whisper something to him, but she's dead. And it's such a wonderful moment, and he goes, "Shh, she's trying to speak." And the audience were so quiet, and I had this big involuntary kind of sob that just came out of me in the middle of this, because I was so moved by it. It was so wonderful. I've been so taken with the story of it so much. So that sticks out in my mind, and that was about 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, that's basically my marker when I am watching a Shakespeare play, but especially when I'm watching Romeo and Juliet. If I cry, because I'm not an easy crier, I really need to feel involved, because otherwise I don't cry. If I cry, the actors were great. If I don't cry, I feel like there was something missing, even though all the rest was good. But that final involuntary sob, when it's there, it means that you were carried away by the whole story and the whole tragedy, and it was so intense that you forgot all the decor and sword fighting and the having fun thing, because eventually it's all about that moment of tragedy, I think. And so if it feels like crying, it means that the energy was there and the emotion was there.
And that is your job as an actor and as a director, is to make the audience feel something. It's not
exactly,
if you feel something in the then that's great, as we talked about earlier about that vulnerability. If you feel something, that's great, but your job is not to feel, your job is to make the audience feel something.
And to involve them. I think it's about carrying the audience with you on a journey, and it doesn't matter if it looks pretty or polished or, you know, technically good, but they need to embark with you on that emotional journey, and that's what it's all about. I mean, I'm not saying that technical details are not important, because they are part of the process, but eventually, if everything is perfect but the emotion is not there, it's not Shakespeare, I think. While if not everything is perfect, but there is a huge emotion, might be Shakespeare. Might be, might not, but might be. But if it's perfect but cold, to me, doesn't feel like Shakespeare.
Yeah, very wise. Yep, totally.
So I have another question. Who would be your dream Hamlet, Lear, Juliet, and Rosalind if you directed the plays? Well, I can answer this. Ilaria, and Ilaria, yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard. Hamlet, who else?
Yeah, Hamlet, Lear, Juliet, and Rosalind.
Lear. I would love to play Lear. I think I would love to play Lear. I'm getting old enough now where I could play that, I think.
Yeah, we're here for that. Can't wait.
Any actor who has, I would love to see, the actors that I love are the ones that are spontaneous and have an ease and have a, and so I'm thinking of people like Jodie Comer and Michaela Cole and Judi Dench. I'd love to see Judi Dench playing Lear.
Oh my God, Judi Dench. Yeah. Oh my God, that would be the
so
everything. Yes.
I'd love to see Jodie Comer play Hamlet. I think she would be incredible. Andrew Scott's already played Hamlet. He was great. He's got that spontaneity. He's got that thing that keeps you guessing. You know, that's what keeps you. What are they going to do next? What are they going to do next?
And
that thing. Totally.
Yeah.
I'd love to have seen. I know that Ian McKellen has just played Hamlet. I would love to have seen that.
Yeah, I think that Gavin saw that. It must be great. Interesting, at least. And very bold choice, by the way.
Yeah, and you should play Rosalind, I think.
That would be my absolute dream, because it's a character that, it speaks to me a lot. And it's actually the character that brought me the role of Viola, because it was my audition piece for that part. So I would love to. Who knows, in the future, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ali. That would be amazing. So one last question to wrap up, since unfortunately we're almost done. I know we have to release you, but I mean, we wouldn't want to, because we would love to keep you here forever and torture you with all acting and Shakespeare questions, but we know it's dinner time. And so, but before we release you, we would like to know, what is that one thing that would make you come back to Shakespeare all the time, no matter how disappointed you might be? I mean, we can have a bad performance, bad day, bad hair day, whatever, but eventually you come back to Shakespeare. Why?
I do come back to him all the time. And it's because I never get bored of him. I never get bored of the language. I never get bored of the stories. And it's because they are so universal. They're so contemporary. You know, he was like, you know, I don't think of Shakespeare as being plays that were written 500 years ago. You know, it's so joyous to see a whole audience laughing at the mechanicals in the Midsummer Night's Dream trying to do Pyramus and Thisbe. The first time I saw that, I was just like, this is amazing. I was like, this is amazing. All these people are like rolling on the floor at this stupid play. I just was amazed at just how engaging it is. You know, the themes they're so universal. They just keep yeah, they speak to everybody, and it's so flexible. And you can, as we talked about, different gender castings and different, you can cut them up, you can do all sorts of things, you can reimagine them in so many ways, and they're still strong enough and wonderful enough to hold their shape and really speak to people nowadays. It's just that's what keeps me coming back.
So right, and it speaks to me, it resonates with me so much that I have shivers down my spine, because we are really talking the same language. So Ali, thank you so much. I give you my personal thank you, first of all, for what you did for me, because as I told you before, you made me really fall in love with acting Shakespeare, and especially acting Shakespeare in English, as I am an Italian girl. But that class completely changed my life goals as an actor. So it was the best experience ever. Thank you for this very meaningful conversation. I really hope we can have some more in the future, if you can still use some more of your precious time. Well,
sure.
Meanwhile, before we meet again, we wish you very good luck with all the summer courses, because I think you have something going on, and with everything, literally. And yeah, would you like to say goodbye with a special Shakespeare quote, just to wrap it up?
Oh, I don't know.
It's such a sweet sorrow.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. Parting is such sweet sorrow. Thank you so much, Ilaria. It's been lovely to talk to you. And yeah, I hope we can do this again. It's been really lovely. And I'm sorry that I lost connection halfway through.
No problem. It was very dramatic, very Shakespeare. He would have approved. So we love that too. Thank you so much, Ali. We wish you a very good evening, and I'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.